Imagine being inside a maximum security county jail cell.
Okay.
You pick up a phone, and within minutes, you have federal employees at hospitals across the entire country just willingly handing you the bank details of vulnerable veterans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you didn't hack a firewall. You didn't write like a complex malicious code. You just exploited a basic bureaucratic blind spot.
It's terrifying, honestly.
It really is. So, welcome to this week's Deep Dive. Our mission for today's Veteran News Roundup is to explore one single vital thread running through our sources for the week of July 20th to July 26th, 2026.
Right.
And that overarching theme is the reality that the very parts of the VA that you, the veteran, actually touch every single day, specifically the phone lines and the claim files, are under severe strain right now.
Yeah, I mean, we are looking at a system where both the physical and the digital infrastructure is just buckling under the weight of demand. When we look at these sources, we really need to ask why these vulnerabilities exist, how they operate mechanically, and what it actually means for you, the person relying on that system for your care and your livelihood.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because on July 13th, a federal jury in Seattle convicted two people, Daryl Lamont Young and Nicola Njisha Williams.
Right, the jailhouse scheme.
Exactly. And the scope of what they pulled off is just deeply unsettling. We're talking about 14 counts for Young, 12 for Williams. They targeted more than 30 VA and non-VA medical facilities.
Over 30.
Over 30. They hit more than 60 victims, attempted 130 fraudulent transactions, and managed to steal about $8,300.
You know, the dollar amount, that $8,300, is actually relatively small in the grand scheme of federal fraud.
Oh, for sure.
But the reach of the scheme, targeting dozens of facilities simultaneously, I mean, it exposes a massive structural flaw in how the VA handles internal communications.
That is the part that blows my mind. Because the mechanics of how they did this are shockingly simple. Young made his calls from inside the King County Jail.
Which normally has safeguards, right?
Right. Normally, when an inmate calls out, there's an automated voice notice declaring, the call is coming from a correctional facility.
Sure.
But Young called a local VA medical center, which somehow just never received or registered that automated notice.
Wow.
From there, he literally just asked the local VA operator to transfer him to other VA facilities in completely different states.
Just a standard transfer.
Yeah. So my question is, how is it possible that a massive federal healthcare system is this vulnerable to a simple phone transfer trick?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it comes down to human trust and how telecommunication routing actually functions.
Okay, explain that.
So when that first VA operator transferred his call, the routing system stripped away the original external caller data.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. When the call arrived at the second VA hospital, the caller ID on their end didn't say King County Jail. It essentially just said internal VA transfer.
Because it was coming from the other hospital.
Exactly. The system was designed with the assumption that an internal call is a vetted, trusted call. The designers just didn't account for a bad actor manipulating the routing to adopt that trusted internal status.
So the so-called firewall was essentially just a polite operator transferring a call.
That's it. That was the hack.
And once he was connected internally, he used military jargon he knew from his own service. He posed as VA staff using names like Jason in bed control or Travis in patient registration.
Right, sounding official.
Yeah, and with that trusted caller ID and just a bit of jargon, he got hospital workers to hand over the names of patients in the intensive care unit.
Which is incredibly sensitive information.
Highly sensitive, along with the names and phone numbers of their emergency contacts.
Which gave his co-defendant, Williams, the exact data she needed to set up three-way calls to those vulnerable families.
The families who are already stressed out because someone is in the ICU.
Exactly. So Young would get back on the line, playing the VA employee, and claim he needed a credit or debit card number to deposit a COVID stimulus payment into the veteran's account.
Under the guise of helping them.
Right. But instead of depositing money, they just siphoned it right into Young's jail commissary and phone accounts.
That is wild. The practical takeaway for you listening right now is absolute. The VA will never, ever call you and ask for your card number to make a deposit.
Never.
VA payments go out by direct deposit that you set up yourself through secure channels. If someone calls asking for financial info, hang up and dial a verified number yourself.
Good advice.
And you really need to tell your emergency contacts the same thing, because as this case shows, family members in a state of panic are often the primary targets.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on the severity of this specific crime, Wire fraud carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison plus 2 consecutive years for aggravated identity theft. Yeah. That is a massive penalty for an $8,300 payout.
Definitely not worth it. So, human trust is clearly the weak link in the phone lines. But when you look at how the VA is overhauling its digital infrastructure, specifically the massive, severely strained disability claims process, they are trying to remove the human element almost entirely.
And that introduces a completely different kind of vulnerability.
Right. Which brings us to the July 13th congressional hearing on the VA expanding its use of artificial intelligence.
This is a huge topic right now.
Huge. Right now, there are 600,000 disability claims pending at the Veterans Benefits Administration, and roughly 80% of them are just sitting in the evidence-gathering stage, waiting for medical records and exam results.
It's a massive backlog.
Now, VA officials insist that this AI technology doesn't decide anything. They claim it merely, quote, supports human decision-making and helps examiners move faster.
Yeah, but to understand the concern here, we really have to look at the mechanism of how generative AI actually interacts with a claim file.
Okay, how does it work?
The AI is essentially being used to ingest thousands of pages of unorganized, dense medical PDFs and extract what it deems to be the relevant data for the human examiner.
But wait, using a massive AI language model to process complex medical claims without enough human reviewers sounds incredibly risky.
Oh, it is.
It feels like having an automated spell checker rewrite an entire legal contract while you're asleep. Like, it might look grammatically perfect when you wake up, but it might have accidentally signed away your house.
Yeah, that analogy hits right at the core of the Government Accountability Office's warning. Sterling Thomas, the GAO's chief scientist, testified that generative AI can make errors.
Hallucinations, right?
Exactly, commonly known as hallucinations. And they are incredibly hard to spot because even the developers don't fully understand the underlying pathways the system uses to arrive at its summaries.
That's reassuring.
Right. If the AI hallucinates a date or misses a single crucial line in a 400-page service treatment record, the human examiner relying on that AI summary might deny the claim based on flawed data.
And this is where I have to push back heavily on the VA's narrative that AI is just a support tool.
Let's hear it.
At that same hearing, Representative Nikki Budzinski brought up some hard data. The VA has actually cut 2,700 human claims examiners since January 2025.
That's a lot of people.
It's a ton. So if we are cutting human examiners by the thousands, aren't we inevitably forcing the machine to take the wheel? Doesn't this effectively turn the veteran into an unpaid software tester for an unproven AI system?
The data suggests that is a very real possibility. The GAO noted that since 2021, they have made 43 recommendations on the VA's disability program, and 15 of those are still open.
Wow.
Furthermore, we already have hard evidence showing what happens when automation gets it wrong. An April review by the VA Inspector General found about 8,000 automated pension and fiduciary service decisions, or letters that omitted favorable findings or included incomplete summaries of the evidence.
Wait, 8,000 automated letters that basically left out the evidence that would have helped the veteran?
Correct.
Unbelievable.
So if you were one of those 600,000 people stuck in the evidence-gathering stage, this means you cannot blindly trust the decision letter you get in the mail.
You just can't.
You have to assume a machine summarized your medical records, and it might have hallucinated away your most critical piece of evidence. You have to check va.gov constantly. You have to keep your own copies of everything.
Yeah, advocate for yourself.
Exactly. When you receive a rating decision, read it meticulously to ensure every single piece of evidence you submitted is actually listed in the evidence considered section.
Because behind every single one of those 600,000 pending files, there is a physical reality. There is a real human being with a real injury.
Absolutely.
Which leads us directly into the alarming new data regarding traumatic brain injuries, or TBIs, in the veteran population.
Yeah, the numbers released this week are pretty stark. According to new VA data, the number of veterans with TBIs recorded in the VA system rose 26% between 2021 and 2025.
26%.
Yeah, we went from 441,639 cases to 556,502. That works out to an average of more than 28,000 new cases entering the system every single year since 2021.
And experts are warning that even that massive number is likely an undercount.
Almost certainly.
Because it misses veterans who haven't come to the VA at all, or whose TBIs were maybe misdiagnosed as post-traumatic stress disorder due to overlapping symptoms. Things like memory loss, mood changes, and just severe daily disruptions.
Right. This is a signature wound of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, presenting really complex long-term medical needs. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a severe friction point right now between those rising physical needs and vanishing resources.
That is the massive disconnect here. As those specific medical needs are skyrocketing, Congress has heavily slashed the budget for the Pentagon program that actually studies brain injuries.
Really surprising.
They cut it from $175 million in fiscal 2024 down to just $40.5 million in fiscal 2026.
That's huge.
That is a 77% drop in research funding. And the House Defense Spending Bill for 2027 would hold it flat at that heavily reduced $40.5 million level.
Veteran groups are actively demanding those cuts be reversed, pointing out that research funded today dictates the quality of care delivered a decade from now.
Exactly.
On the legislative front, Representative Frank Pallone sponsored a bipartisan bill to renew national TBI programs through 2030. That bill passed the House unanimously on July 20th and is currently waiting on the Senate.
And despite the budget cuts, there are some incredible advancements happening on the technology side.
Oh, yeah.
The Army is currently fielding a new handheld device in Europe called the iStat Alinity. It can actually flag a brain injury from a single blood sample in under 15 minutes.
Which is incredible.
Wait, how does a blood test actually see a concussion? Like, what is a device like that even looking for?
It's a really fascinating mechanism. So when brain tissue is damaged by a concussive blast or a physical impact, the injured cells release specific protein biomarkers. Those proteins cross the blood-brain barrier and enter the bloodstream. The iStat Alinity device is calibrated to detect those specific elevated proteins.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so if they're present, it gives medics an immediate objective indicator of a brain injury, rather than relying solely on the patient's self-reporting symptoms like dizziness or confusion.
Which is a complete game changer for getting an accurate diagnosis in the field.
Yeah, really.
For you listening, the immediate step, regardless of what happens with research budgets in Washington, is to get screened. The VA offers free TBI screening. Getting a diagnosis objectively on your medical record is the key that opens the door to both compensation and specialized care.
But of course, as we saw with the TBI bill, getting anything finalized right now means waiting on the Senate.
Yep.
Which serves as a perfect lens to view the broader reality of legislative gridlock affecting veterans across the board this week.
Let's slow down and map out the conflicting forces on this next piece of legislation very carefully. And we are remaining entirely neutral here. Our goal is simply to report the facts of why a massive package benefits is currently stalled.
Right.
Last week, House Republican leaders pulled a sprawling bill from a floor vote. It's called the Take Care of America's Veterans Act. This is a massive bundle of more than 60 separate measures. And one of the most anticipated pieces inside it is the Major Richard Starr Act.
Just to define that briefly, the Major Richard Starr Act would allow combat-injured veterans to receive both their Department of Defense retirement pay and their VA disability compensation simultaneously.
Without one offsetting the other.
Exactly, without reducing either. It's been a massive priority for veteran advocates for years.
But the entire 60-measure package was pulled from the floor due to fierce, multi-directional opposition. Let's look at the factions, starting with the labor side. The American Federation of Government Employees, which represents about 300,000 VA workers, actively campaigned against the bill.
Right.
They are looking at a provision called the Veterans Access Act, which they argue would force the VA to push veterans out into private, for-profit care networks, ultimately hollowing out the VA's own internal workforce.
The union is also fighting a very specific structural change within the bill that would reclassify about 5,000 VA psychologists under a hiring status called full Title 38.
Okay, what exactly is Title 38, and why would a psychologist care if they are placed under it?
So Title 38 is a specific hiring authority used by the VA that essentially treats the employee the same as a VA physician or dentist.
Oh, okay.
The union argues that moving psychologists to this status strips them of crucial collective bargaining and appeal rights.
I see.
However, lawmakers like Representative Mike Both argue the exact opposite. He contends that elevating psychologists to Title 38 alters their pay structure in a way that makes the VA much more competitive with the private sector.
Which would help with hiring.
Right, which will aid in hiring and retaining desperately needed mental health professionals. And it should also be noted that the Trump administration formally endorsed the entire legislative package on July 15th.
So you have a fundamental clash between labor protections and hiring flexibility. But the veteran groups themselves are also engaged in essentially a civil war over this bill, primarily concerning how it's funded.
Yeah, the pay-fors.
Right. The disabled American veterans and the veterans of foreign wars strongly oppose the bill because of these pay-fors. To fund the new benefits, the bill would cut future disability pay for veterans claiming sleep apnea and tinnitus.
Which is very controversial.
Extremely. Those groups argue it is morally bankrupt to cut one generation's future benefits to pay for another's current care.
But then, on the other side of that divide, you have groups like the American Legion, the Military Officers Association of America, and Mission Roll Call supporting the bill. Their focus is on the immediate, tangible benefits the package delivers. The bill includes provisions that would significantly increase compensation payments to the most severely disabled veterans, their caregivers, and their survivors.
Which is life-changing money.
Exactly. They argue those life-changing increases for the most vulnerable simply cannot be delayed any longer.
So what does this complex web of opposition mean for you? Right now, it means absolute limbo. The bill is stalled. House Speaker Mike Johnson hasn't publicly stated when or if it will return to the floor for a vote.
It's just stuck.
It is. It means these crucial benefits and the highly controversial cuts required to pay for them remain entirely unsettled.
You are quite literally left waiting on Washington to resolve an ideological gridlock.
Now, while Washington is paralyzed, it is fascinating to see that veterans at the local level are stepping up to run the literal machinery of democracy themselves.
This was a great story.
It's a very straightforward, nonpartisan initiative called Vet the Vote, which was highlighted in the VA's July 20th jobs newsletter.
The mission here is incredibly practical. It's to recruit veterans and military families to work as paid poll workers for the upcoming November midterm elections.
And it's got some heavy hitters behind it.
Yeah, it's backed by a massive coalition of over 50 organizations, bridging everything from the VFW and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to the NFL and NASCAR.
The logistics of this are pretty compelling, too. The compensation typically ranges from $150 to $300 a day, plus you get paid training.
Not bad at all.
No. The campaign set a massive goal of 250,000 recruits. And since they launched in 2022, they've already had over 165,000 people sign up to work the polls.
That level of turnout really speaks to the core identity of the veteran community. I think a quote from Navy veteran Julie Hendricks really captures the reality of the job.
What did she say?
She described the work as exhausting but rewarding. Elections are long days, but people just want to know their vote counts and that the process is secure.
Sure.
Veterans are uniquely suited to provide that calm, trustworthy presence in their local communities.
It's a great reminder that election offices recruit year-round, not just for the general elections, but for primaries and special elections, too.
Right.
The next major election day is Tuesday, November 3, 2026. If you're interested in being part of that infrastructure, you should register early at vetThe.vote, because the required training does take time.
It is a really inspiring example of veterans being the reliable infrastructure of their towns. But, to bring this full circle, we need to look back at the actual infrastructure veterans rely on for their own survival.
Exactly. Civic duty is vital, but we have to circle back to our core theme today, the parts of the VA that you actually touch.
Right.
We started this deep dive looking at scammers exploiting the VA phone lines from a jail cell. Now we need to look at the VA's own internal failures regarding those exact same phone lines. This comes from a deeply concerning report from the VA Office of Inspector General.
Yeah, the OIG conducted a massive test of 219 specialty care clinic phone numbers. We are talking about the direct lines you call for critical needs, like radiology, surgery, mental health.
The important ones.
The most important ones. Out of those 219 numbers tested, more than a third were completely wrong.
More than a third.
Yeah. They either rang endlessly, disconnected, or just went to the wrong department entirely.
The sheer volume of failure here is staggering. Between August 2024 and July 2025, about 20% of the 2.9 million calls made were routed to wrong or non-working lines.
Furthermore, 11 of the 15 facilities the OIG reviewed had no interactive routing options.
Meaning what exactly?
There was no menu to press 1 for scheduling or 2 for a nurse. That lack of basic routing architecture pushed 18% of all incoming calls straight to voicemail.
Okay, here is the dark irony of this entire week of news. A criminal sitting in a county jail cell managed to navigate the VA phone system with extreme surgical precision to steal money.
Yeah.
Yet nearly 1 million phone calls from actual veterans seeking medical care were entirely untracked, dropped, or misrouted by the VA. And we aren't talking about calls to the billing department or the cafeteria here.
No, not at all.
The OIG found that at least 338,000 of those lost calls went to radiology clinics, and 109,000 went to mental health clinics.
Which brings us to the most alarming aspect of this report, and this raises an important question about fundamental accountability.
What happened?
Well, after the OIG shared their early findings back in January, only 19 out of 49 clinics stated they planned to reconfigure their systems. 7 of those facilities explicitly stated they had absolutely no plans to fix their phone lines.
They have no plans to fix broken phone lines to mental health clinics.
None.
That is unacceptable.
It is a profound failure of basic customer service at a clinical level. So, what is your practical takeaway here?
Right.
If you call a specialty clinic and the phone rings nowhere or drops immediately, do not assume they are closed or ignoring you. The directory listing is highly likely to be wrong.
Good point.
You need to bypass that direct number. Call the main facility switchboard and have an operator physically transfer you.
Yeah, or use the secure messaging portal on va.gov to create a digital paper trail of your attempt to contact them.
Exactly. And if a broken phone line is actively blocking you from receiving necessary care, report that specific clinic directly to the VA OIG hotline online.
We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. To summarize, the central theme of this week's news is inescapable.
Yeah.
The direct touch points for veterans, from the literal phone line you dial trying to reach a therapist, to the digital claims file sitting in an automated evidence-gathering queue, are currently buckling under systemic strain.
And that leaves us with a final thought to ponder as we close out this week's deep dive. We are living in a fascinating era where the VA is deploying highly advanced generative artificial intelligence to summarize hundreds of thousands of disability files.
Right.
The Army is utilizing complex protein biomarkers to deliver 15-minute rapid result blood tests for brain injuries in the field. But if the foundational layer of basic infrastructure, something as simple as maintaining a working phone number to a local mental health clinic, is broken, does any of that high-tech advancement actually matter?
That's a great point.
Or are we just installing a state-of-the-art security system on a house where the front door doesn't even have a lock?
That is the question of the week. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember to stay informed, track your claims meticulously, and always double-check who is on the other end of the line.